Okay, namaskar. Um, very happy to be talking to Manthan. First, because I know what Manthan is engaged in. I have, in fact, in the 80s, I was myself joint editor of the English version of Manthan during Nanaji Deshmukh's time, the Deen Dayal Shodh Sansthan, when Devendra Swarup Agarwal, Dr. Devendra Swarup Agarwal was the editor of Manthan. So we had both English and Hindi, and a lot of research has been done because it's a research journal, and there's a beautiful library there where you can study all religions, all books, all philosophies, and so on. So I'm very happy. Now, Manthan. The word Manthan was a wonderful word. I don't know who created it, but maybe Nanaji Deshmukh, I'm not so sure. But it's an ancient word that comes from our heritage. If you go back to the Puranas, there was a Samudra Manthan when the Devas and the Asuras, using Vasuki as the snake as the churning rope, and the Meru as the churning rod, churned the ocean of milk. And out of that came the Amrit, which of course the Asuras took and ran and so on. I mean, these are all from the stories of Puranas and so on. What is to be noted is when the churning was done, the first thing that came out was poison. And such a serious poison, it would have enveloped the whole world and destroyed it, according to the Puranas. Except that Shiva, the deity of yogis, was there to swallow it so that it does not influence the world. And the story says that it stopped at his neck because Parvati was very worried and she held it here. And so the world was saved and Shiva was saved by Parvati, maybe. So the reason that there was a blue clot on his throat, which is why he's referred to very often as Nilakanta. So that is Manthan. So now it's important because we are going through, in the history of a country, in the history of a nation, in the stages of sadhana of a spiritual person, in life itself, apart from all this, there are periods of Manthan that happen. You shift from one situation to another and there is for some time a Manthan happening, there is a churning happening. And then out of that, when the churning happens, first, what is deeply buried in us, which may be sometimes poisonous, comes out and then it disappears and then the Amrit comes. So we are hoping that this churning will result ultimately in Amrit when all the poison has been emptied. And that's what we are all trying to do. Amrit, little bit has come, but much more has to come. And that Amrit is a beautiful essence. I'm saying this because on the 5th of August, Honorable Prime Minister is going to lay the foundation stone of the Ram temple in Ayodhya. I wish we consider this as laying the foundation stone of the Ram inside us, in the heart, which the great yogi who sang the wonderful song, Pivare Ramarasa, talked about. He said, sing the nectar-like name of Rama. I'm sure you're all quite familiar with the song, Pivare Ramarasa. Who was the Paramahamsa who sang it? Sadashiva Brahmendra, yes, the great Sadashiva Brahmendra said that it is the song of the place where the Paramahamsas live. So if such a great Vedantin as Sadashiva Brahmendra and such a great yogi and Avadhuta could have sung Pivare Ramarasa, there's a lot to think about that name and its importance and why it's important to us, especially we who are born and brought up in this country with this much of great heritage behind us. So it's really important now to look at the nectar of this Ramarasa. Now, I'm going to start with a term which has been called Vedantic Socialism, because the great Swami Vivekananda who actually took us to the understanding of the great truths of Vedanta. You know that Swami Vivekananda was one of the first people to take the wisdom of this country, ancient wisdom of the country, which are the yogas, the science of yoga, and the Upanishads to the Western countries. For the first time, everybody woke up and said, such profound wisdom in what they considered to be an uncivilized land, and there were people who were converting people to other religions to take them towards civilization when we already had 1,000 years or more of such wisdom that we don't need to be converted this way or that way. You can stay where you are and understand your own heritage, and you had it. You got it. So, Swami Vivekananda, you know, was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And he used the word socialism and put it together with Vedanta. This is interesting because according to him, he said once, I'm a socialist because at least you get half a bread than no bread at all. So let's define the word socialism and what Vivekananda meant by Vedantic socialism. Socialism means good for the masses, for everyone. Distribution of wealth for everyone. The benefit of all and the well-being of all. Now this is not Swamiji's invention, because he was so much grounded in the ancient wisdom of this country. He was merely quoting, or not even quoting, was interpreting the term used by Vyasa. Well, some would say Krishna, doesn't matter, let's say Vyasa, it doesn't matter, the great Vyasa. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna defines to Arjuna, what are the qualities of a perfect yogi? I would interpret it as a perfect man. A yogi is a perfect man. He said, one of the qualities, attributes, no matter what mode of worship you adopt, which God you worship, what you do, is sarvabhuta hiterata, which means welfare of all living beings in one's heart. Swamiji was only propounding this philosophy in his own wonderful way when he said that social meaning all humanity. Well, when you are born in India, it starts from here and then goes to other places. So he said, so what is the essence of Vedanta? One is the understanding that we should live and work for the benefit of all living beings, no matter who they are. And this is the wonderful essence of the Vedantic philosophy. How? Because the Vedantic experience says that we all, not only human beings, other living beings, all have a spark of the supreme reality in our hridayas, in our hearts. The essence of the being of all people, all living beings, is the spark of the divine. The Atman, which is a spark of the Paramatma. This is the basis. And since that is so, to serve another human being or to look after an animal is actually worshipping the divine spark in all living beings, because it's the only worship you can actually do. We can worship other gods, you cannot worship the Supreme Brahman, you can only acknowledge it. But the most important image that you can worship of the Supreme Being is the human being standing before us. Which is why when Swami Vivekananda started the Belur Math, and when they said, whose image shall we put here? He said, put Rama, Krishna's image. Why? Because he said, I don't know any other God. I know him. I've met him and he was God for me. So here you go. So this welfare of all living beings comes from the fact that we are all sparks of the divine. Now you see, there is this theory of socialism. It's an imported theory. It's not an Indian theory. It comes from abroad. That's fine. There are many things which are good for us. Even Swami Vivekananda said, it's good to take what is good from the West. Unfortunately, we take first what is not good for us. Anyway, that is a different matter. But take what is good, technology, science, everything is good for us. But the wisdom of the self, of the inner being, the spiritual essence of us, nobody has to give us from anybody. We have it here. And therefore, I'll come to that a little later. Our political theories, I think, should be based more on our heritage than political theories which have been invented, discovered, and worked out by people belonging to other nations. So, we have this popular theory of socialism. It's a wonderful theory, equality to all, equal distribution of wealth, constant revolution. I'm going to dwell on each of this. Now, Karl Marx, his philosophy, which is given very briefly in the small tract written by him and Engels together. I think it's called the Communist Manifesto, and also in the Das Kapital. But it is based on economic theory. There is no touching of the Atman or the inner self or the wisdom that we have in this country at all. I personally think that if Marx had read the Upanishads, his idea of religion would have been different. When he says religion, he talks only about this. He refers basically to the Semitic religion, not to the Upanishads. If he had gone through the Upanishads, we must say that for 40 years a man sat in the British Library and worked and created the Das Kapital. Great, wonderful work. If only a few more years on that, or a few years inside this time limit, in the study of the Upanishads, I think his theories would have been different. Now nobody will agree, because the problem is when people catch on to theories, they don't want to change it. We need to change. That is Manthan. Churn, change, move. I think that's also revolution. It's not just physical revolution. The Naxals, they think there should be armed revolution, and it should go on and go on and go on forever, because revolution is a permanent affair. This is totally interpreting the concept of revolution in physical terms and political terms. Revolution should happen. What is revolution? Churning. It should happen in the mind. In every state of thinking, in every movement of our life, there should be a revolution. We should think, can we change? Is this all there is? Can we move? This changing and discarding of what that is not real to us till the time, and moving to that which is real, is what Shankara the jewel of Vedanta referred to as nay, not this, not this. Now, if you need to say not this all the time, it's a constant revolution. It's not a joke. I like to say, oh, now I have settled my theories, I want to hang on to this. He says, break, move. In fact, when Shankara defines the Upanishad, the simple meaning of Shad is sit. But Shad also has a meaning, shake up. This shaking up of the mind is revolution. This physical revolution, it has not succeeded anywhere. Nobody likes to be violently changed through guns. I think power comes through the barrel of a gun was preached by Mao, not even Karl Marx. And do we find any equality in the communist countries that we see? Where do we see? They all become kind of oligarchies. And the oligarchs are the top politicians who appoint themselves for life as presidents, as prime ministers. There is no equality. They think they can bring about equality, but it doesn't work. It is not possible because all human beings are not born equal. They are born different. Yeah, they are born equal because they are born from the mother's womb. Agreed. They have the same set of organs. Agreed. But what about the 3 million years of genetic evolution? There has to be different. It can't be the same. A father and a mother produce a child. Another father and mother pursue. They can't be equal. I mean, when I say equal, I'm not talking about economic equality. They are different. They can't be the same. So to bring about a sameness in things which are not same has not worked anywhere in the world. Most of the communist and socialist movements have ended in dictatorships. So is there a socialism that will work? This is what Swami Vivekananda said, Vedantic Socialism, which means if you recognize the fact that everyone is a spark of the divine, no matter how unequal and how different you are externally, yes, agreed. But the inner spark is not different, it's from the same source. If you understand this, then you are a real socialist because then you consider everybody as the same. The equality is inner, not outer. The difference, the commonality is inner, not outer. This is called, and when you understand this, whether you realize it or you don't realize it, even if you understand it as a theory, you respect every being. You respect people's beliefs. But people should be ready to churn and look at their beliefs as they proceed and say, is this all there is? Or is there further movement? Can we grow? Not this, maybe more. So this constant movement is the true Vedantic revolution. And this constant trying to understand the truth is the Vedantic movement towards philosophy, towards understanding. The exploration of consciousness, which today has become such an important topic. Everybody is talking about consciousness. And it is only such a rishi who has understood this fact who can say, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vedanti, there is only one truth, but the wise men may call it by different names. I don't think there are any religions or any other way of thought which believes maybe in one book and one way. This is the only way who can talk like this. It's okay, you may think that's right, fine. But to say that it is the same that should be applied to all humanity, the Vedas don't agree with this. They say that each person can have their own conclusions about the reality because the reality is so expanded and so infinite, and with our puny brains we make our own definitions. You can say that in the heritage and philosophy of this country and still claim to be a Hindu. You cannot do it otherwise. If you believe that this is the only way to the truth, then it is difficult to say that, well, I believe in the Sanatana Dharma of Hinduism. Not possible. So you see this, 1,000 years ago, these thoughts have already been looked at. And Swami Vivekananda taught something else. He also said that very often people think to be spiritual is to be lazy, not do anything. So he said, you give up your life in this world and become monks. You cannot meditate all the time. You cannot be spiritually involved all the time. So serve humanity. So if you go to the Ramakrishna mission, you will see the monks. They come from various backgrounds. Their most important thing is service to humanity. So he very much stressed on this wonderful ancient saying, Atmano mokshartha jagat hitaya cha. Moksha for the Atman, doing good to the world, goodness for the world, to improve the world. What a lofty philosophy that if only we in this country, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, in fact, if you believe in rebirth, well, for me it's not a belief. It is so, but I can't prove it to you. You can't put rebirth in a test tube. If you believe in rebirth, this caste system that Swami Vivekananda was so much against, he said, this untouchability, outcast, caste, this system is what has actually destroyed this world, this country. He said we should free ourselves from that. Rama eats a fruit from Sabari. He's a mountain fox. He doesn't say, I won't touch you. Vedavyasa's mother was a fisherwoman. And in some cases in the Upanishad, you'll see people, we don't know who the father is. But the mother seems to be a very wise person. And such a great being becomes a great saint. Nobody knows his antecedents. How can you then decide their faith, their caste, their creed? Suppose I really know about past birth. Today somebody may be born a Christian. How do you know that in last birth he was not born a Hindu or a Muslim or a Brahmin or a Jew? Tell me. Not possible to say. Those who know, know. Those who don't know, don't know. So let's leave it there. So when you understand that the Atman, the inner being is most important, then caste, creed, difference, everything vanishes, because this in the embodiment can happen in any place, at any time, in any part of the world. I think today many wise men are born in other parts of the world. So, also, I'm not saying only there, but also. So with that understanding of the inner self, what Swami Vivekananda called Vedantic Socialism, all these differences can be set apart and we can move forward. This should be a healthy beginning of life. Now it is not as if other people haven't tried after Swami Vivekananda to inculcate the heritage of this country into the political, economic and spiritual life of India, of Bharat. One such person was Deen Dayal Upadhyaya. In fact, the Deen Dayal Research Center, Deen Dayal Shodh Sansthan, unfortunately he died very young. They say that he was murdered. We don't know. Probably he was, because he was an up and coming star. He coined a word called integral humanism. Instead of socialism or Vedantic socialism occurred to him to be a little Vedantic. Everybody is not Vedantically inclined. Instead of Vedanta, he used the word humanism. And when he said integral humanism, there were three parts to this. Deen Dayal Upadhyaya, Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya said, it consists of one Sarvodaya. Now, Sarvodaya is a concept which Mahatma Gandhi, what was his disciple's name, was the Bhudan movement. Vinoba Bhave. Later on, Jayaprakash Narayan, they all serve. But the meaning of the word Sarvodaya is not a movement. It means Sarvodaya. Sarvodaya means progress of all. Udaya of all. Now, Sarvodaya therefore means, in a way, it's the Indian definition of socialism. Then swadeshi. When you say swadeshi, he didn't mean that we should not import technology from outside or what is good from other countries. What he meant was we should by and by start being independent of outer. It's not as if you should burn all the clothes that come from. This is a very extreme view. If you find clothes, for instance, because we have khadi and so on, but suppose, and they are good, find a way of doing it here in this country. You don't have to be dependent on other countries. You have to sometimes, but you don't have to. Today, many countries are trying to be independent of, for instance, I'm not pointing a finger at China. They want to manufacture themselves. Therefore, I think what we today call Make in India movement, which the Prime Minister is keep talking about, is actually an offshoot. It's a growth and development of this Swadeshi, one of the parts of the integral humanism movement of the Dayal Upadhyaya. Then Sarvodaya, Swadeshi, and therefore it's important for us to have people who have the means, industrialists and others, to put together things which can be manufactured here and not depend too much on others. Of course, in any civilized nation, imports and exports will continue. There is no question about that. We shouldn't go to the extreme step. But if you are able to do, at least to a great extent, manufacture and things in India itself, which has a vast potential because of our labor, cheap labor, because no Indian lacks brains. Most of the IT people who work in the US and other Europe and other countries are from here. We even have a finance minister from here working in UK now, Narayana Murthy, son-in-law. There is no dearth of brains. If these brains can be used here, this country will become like a heaven. We don't have to worry about others. We don't have to disrespect others. Please, disrespecting is not part of Indian culture. Give respect, always. Atiti Devo Bhava is an ancient statement from the Vedas. A guest is a god for us. So it's not like that. But we can be self-reliant and not dependent. And then Gram Swaraj. Now when you say Gram Swaraj, it is not like you should have Gram Sevaks walking around in the village. It means take your wisdom and power right down to the village so that they have a say in what is being done. Otherwise it all happens in cities, metropolises. Take it to the village because India largely still lives in villages. You can turn a village into a city as it is there without relocating. Give all facilities, make them understand so that for rural development is actually part of village self-rule. Gram Swaraj is a word he used. We don't have to use the same word now, but empowerment of villages is a very important part. This again is kind of a Manthan that we have to do, a churning, a movement towards understanding this better. We are moving slowly, but it's relevant that we look into this carefully and put it. Now, it also meant integral humanism, not only the physical aspects of life, but body, mind and spirit. Now for this, you require some pride in your national heritage. Please, there are people who say, oh, pride, nationalism is, somebody said nationalism is glorified tribalism, and I think it's rubbish. There's nothing like that. Who is not, an Arab is an Arab first, and then something else. We are from Hindustan. This country is known for ages as Hindustan. Why shouldn't we? I think we are, but there are some women proud of being part of this ancient nation, which when Darashiko translated the Upanishads and it went to Greece, the Greek philosopher stood up and said, oh my God, we didn't know that there was such depth of philosophy in this country. Aren't we proud of that? Now, why this has happened is very interesting. I said this once, but I want to say this again. There was a great man called Macaulay. Great man. As far as the British is concerned, he was indeed great because he did a great number of things. And he was the one who introduced English education into India. Fine. Today, if we didn't know English, I wouldn't be talking to you in English. Agreed. Lot of wisdom has been translated. Why would Raja Ram Mohan Roy translate the Upanishads into English? Because he knew that then it has an impact, because the whole world, most of the people know English. Today we have 24 languages or more and many more dialects in this country. English looks like a linked language. Why? Because Hindi has been totally thrown out. Other languages have been thrown out. Why? Because it was Macaulay's principle that English should become the most important part of education in India. Well, it did good things also. We cannot deny that. The problem was he didn't do it to make our education levels up. In the Macaulay's English Education Act of 1835, he said something very interesting. And I'm afraid we are still, many of us are laboring under that. He said we want to create a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in opinions, in morals and in intellect. When you say English in intellect, which means what? That all the Western English wisdom is the greatest in the world. There is nothing else. What was the outcome of this after this? He said that Sanskrit and Hindi should be neglected. I can't find the exact article. I was looking for it. He said immediately stop all British support to the printing of Sanskrit books. This is there by the Sanskrit College in Banaras. Stop all Hindi research, all Sanskrit research. So he dumped Sanskrit and he dumped Hindi. This is the result. We have become Macaulay's disciples now. Indian men, lots of us, Indian in blood and color, but English in opinions, in morals, intellect. In fact, we cannot have a meeting, serious meeting, without a bottle of scotch. That is our situation. Why? Scotch is made in Scotland. Where is Scotland? Next to England. I'm just giving you an example. You want to have a scotch, you have a scotch. I'm just saying how it works on the psyche. So from 1835, our psyches have been changed. I think many escaped and many are escaping thanks to the work of a few handful of people who kept the heritage of this country alight. As I alight, I mean A-L-I-G-H-T, alight, not elite, alight. And I think Swami Vivekananda sowed the seeds of this Reformation, where even though he talked excellent English, he said, we have our culture, we have our heritage, we are not what you think we are, savages walking around with loincloths, we are something more. And there is actually, if you wear a loincloth, you don't become a savage. It doesn't depend on what dress you wear. You don't need a three-piece suit to declare that you are civilized. So, this is interesting to note. We should keep this in mind and not allow, while we get Western science and technology, adopt it, model it to suit our heritage, customs need not be blindly copied. Let me say, this is now that we are going through this terrible pandemic all over the world. What is the best way people have found all over the world, including Prince Charles, I saw in a video, to greet each other? Shaking hands, gone. Hugging, gone. Kissing the nose, gone. What are we doing? This is a symbol of saying you and I are the same. It's a symbol of unity. It's a symbol also of praying to the spark of the divine in my heart. Namaste. I'm just giving an example to tell you that there are many wonderful things in our heritage and our tradition that should not be given up, taken over, or misinterpreted because we have become disciples of Macaulay. This is what I'm trying to say. Don't have to do that. So, now from there we come to, now the temple of Ram is going to come up. On the 5th of August, the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to lay the foundation stone. Everything is settled. The court has agreed. Now, a good section of Muslims have also welcomed it. A section of Sunnis, a section of Shias, many ulamas, many learned people have welcomed it. Yesterday I saw the governor of Kerala speaking. He's also a scholar. He may be a governor, but the thing is, first thing we have to understand that Ram, so much in the North India, for instance, Ram is a common greeting. Whether you believe in Vishnu, Ram Ji, even Kabir, who did not believe in the worship of idols and so on, uses Ram to denote God. When someone dies, they say, Ram Naam Satya hai, Ram Naam Satya, as they take him to. So it's a common enough greeting also when you say Ram Ji. Now, this Ram of Ayodhya, goes back into ancient history. Some people even have now, let me say, I'm sorry saying this, but the disciples of Macaulay even say that he is not historical. That's okay. Let's not discuss that now. It's symbolized as a Maryada Purusha. Maryada Purusha means not even as a god, but as a great king. You can have Shivaji's statue, you can have Shivaji's temples. You can't have Ram's temples. I don't get this. You have Sir Lytton or somebody standing in statue. You have Dutch conquerors in whose name statues are made. People go, I don't know if they go and put flowers there, but why not this symbol, who is respected all over this country? In fact, the great in the south, the great Tyagaraja Swami, most of his songs are on Rama. I told you Sadashiva Brahmendra's Pibare Ramarasa. So this Ram, the name which has been used by great saints, great yogis, great bhaktas to define the ultimate Maryada Purusha, perfect man. Forget about the godliness for the time being, perfect man. Wouldn't you also build a temple to a perfect man? This is Vedantic. And he is represented as a symbol of sacrifice because his mother said go. He went off into the forest from the palace with his entire family, lived there. Man of truth, fullness and strength. Now, Valmiki, the Adi Kavi, the first poet in Sanskrit, Valmiki describes it beautifully, talking about the gentle smile on the face of this Maryada Purusha and the formidable bow and arrow in his hand, which means gentleness and firmness put together as a symbol. This is Ram. A great Vedantic like Swami Vivekananda said that Ram is the symbol of humanity. We could have gone into Upanishad and says, no, but he says, is great simple avatar of righteousness. These are the words. One of the functions or ceremonies which are regularly practiced in the Ramakrishna mission religiously is Ram Navami. I have been a brahmachari in the Ramakrishna mission. Ram Navami is celebrated, every Ram Navami celebrated bhajans, kirtans, Shuddha Brahma Parat Pararam, and so on. So when such a thing comes up, Uh, First, let me congratulate all people who officially do not belong to the Hindu religion. Oh, welcome this coming up of this. I appeal to all religious heads, no matter which, to stand united and support this beautiful temple that is coming up, considering it a proud heritage being presented to future humanity. Forget about religion also for this. Avoid the trap of the dividers who are prepared to bring in even bloodshed if only they could shake the unity of this country. So, irrespective whether you believe or you don't, I think at this moment we should all get together and support this beautiful monument. I'm sure it's going to come up. It commemorates the birthplace of a great being who has been celebrated as the most important deity in the Indian pantheon. Krishna, of course, but it's different. So with this, I think I'm going to end this talk. Once more, let me stress, Atmano mokshat jagat hitaya cha. Moksha for the self and well-being of humanity. These are the two things which define this culture. And I think this temple would be, should be, would be, can be a symbol of this great truth. And discourage others from thinking that because we have a gentle face, we are a weak nation. The bow and arrow is a perfect symbol of that. So, remembering Shuddha Brahma Parat Pararam, Kala Atmaka Parameshwara Ram, I'm winding up this talk for the time being. Thank you very much, all citizens of this country called Bharat. Namaskar.